Maybe that's-
Jeff Graham is right.
Is he?
Yeah.
Must be the night. So that would have been like 2.
I'm sure. How are you? Not bad. I was gonna steal.
I was thinking, how come my bag?
Willie, older guys. Yeah, no. I was talking to Tom. He said he had a wing plant.
Also in charge.
Yeah.
Factory.
He's like that. That sound familiar?
No, but
There's.
alcohol.
Yeah.
Tony. Deal.
We'd still be fine.
Made it all up. I got one witness, 2 other people. When are we online, Rachel?
When?
Like when can people hear us?
Just right now when I logged you in.
Playing it up.
Yeah.
So
Watch your.
we are-
You're live now.
So you already get jokes.
I'll let you guys know.
Here, you got cold water pools and a cold water. I don't get the trend anymore. You like it?
So far, we are. You'll like it in the long run, and everything's on the phone. I mean, it's remarkable. The guy that put ours in, had we not signed up last year, we wouldn't have got that this year.
Yeah.
Hendrick, Gary, yeah, and he's already through September of next year. Yeah.
You're
Business to be in. Oh, yeah.
For now.
Yeah, for now.
yeah.
You know, where they of them down here in Portville. Yeah, it's, every day you see those schools coming out of work.
I've known Gary and Tina for years. So, yeah, Tina's ex-husband's real good. He was my dad's best friend. So, yeah, we've been family friends for a long time. They do great work.
And his boy did landscaping.
Jonathan?
The other one. Jonathan works on the pools.
Jonathan does the tools.
And then,
I know Jonathan, the other one.
the other one does, he did a great job.
Give me just a second, our Wi-Fi just went down.
Jeff Graham did it.
It's my fault. I admit it.
I'm sorry, I didn't know he was on.
Hey, Jeff, is it showing that we're on still?
I've got you loud and clear.
Okay. Well,
Does he get, do you get this kind of rate when he's not here?
Same rate. That's a good question.
Don't tell him, I'm going to ask.
Yeah, I'm gonna go, is that are we on?
I think we're good.
Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and start, September 10th monthly meeting. Take a couple minutes for silence. Gary, you want to lead us in the pledge of allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Will, you want to do roll call, please?
Sure, be glad to. Robert Jones. Jessica Smith.
Here.
Shane Davis.
Here.
Steve Denny.
Here.
Chet Bam.
Here.
All accounted for.
Next on your agenda is approval of minutes for the August Town Council meeting. Everybody had a chance to read them. Any questions or comments or changes?
Second.
I got a motion and a second. And before our lawyer reminds me, roll call vote.
Robert Jones. Jessica Smith.
Aye.
Shane Davis.
Aye.
Steve Denny.
Aye.
Chet Bam.
Yes.
All ayes.
Our treasurer's report.
Yeah, I think all of you have seen the allowance docket claims and everything. The public hearing for the 2021 budget will be conducted on October the 8th at a regular council meeting, and the adoption of the 2021 budget will be conducted on Wednesday, October 21st. And our general fund is back up there where it should be, $535,608. That's all I have, sir.
Questions or comments?
Rainy day fund, on that, remember certain right, we set that up several years ago that we collected almost 15,000 out of the storage buildings from rent. Put that into there and we build it up from the account is now over like 60 or 70,000. So the changes in the use of the building. Are we still able to put 15,000 a year into the rainy day fund, or you may not know that, you're on.
I can't know, right? You talking about the storage units?
Yeah, we were taking 15 a year out of that business, but to build rainy day fund.
I know we just had to have some roof work done,
Yeah.
but I can find out.
Motion to approve the clerk treasurer's report.
I've got a motion and a second to approve the clerk treasurer's report. Roll call vote, please. What you want?
Robert Jones. Jessica Smith. Shane Davis.
Aye.
Steve Denny.
Aye.
Jeff Babb.
Yes. Motion carried. Department reports. Chief Moore, you want to talk or?
I don't have anything new unless anybody has any questions.
Sweet to the point. I like how you're breaking it down now between, we have been for a while, just so everybody knows. Ingalls and I-69 Ingalls and so forth, so we can track that like we're trying to. I appreciate it. Police report, Chief Farr is available tonight. Board is in. Any questions or comments? Judge Gus, you online?
Yes, sir, I am.
You got anything?
Just that I'll be so happy when COVID-19 stops because of the situation we have to have. What we normally accomplished in a 2-hour session is now going into 4 and 5-hour sessions because of the, what do you call it? All the checking and also the Zoom that we have to work out. It's just been interesting.
I will say it's ran pretty good to me. I know it's a lot slower, but it looks good standing outside and standing in the courtroom. I'll put it that way. It looks very organized.
We'll leave it at that. That's good.
Okay. Any other questions or comments for the judge? Aaron first, are you online? Aaron turned in his report. Any questions or comments about the park? Scott, your turn.
Now the TV, our internet's not doing well tonight, and every time I turn the TV on, it like kicks me off, so.
You're the county manager now, not the attorney, so that's. Okay. Keep these straight, Scott. Okay.
Okay, a lot of people were interested in this, and you probably got some phone calls. The stop work order was lifted at the falls. Jeff Graham, County Attorney, got a bond in place with that. That also allowed us to they turned over $7,500 to us to allow us to go back from square one and check the engineering on that pond. We went back, and in fact, they were out there yesterday and resurveyed that pond. Fanning Engineering and myself just don't feel like the pond, the as-built drawings for that pond were right, and all the engineering assumptions were based on that. So we went back and redid a survey. Probably a good thing that we did. We found some interesting things. 2 new employees that we're very happy to bring on board. Brett Mabry is going to be the inspector. He was the chief inspector for Anderson Fire Department. He retired and came to us to work the next week. So, and Denise McKee, who was at the park, and I think that's a very good hire for continuity reasons. To be able to continue to help the park when they need it, and she will understand the interaction. I just lost my job. No longer the town attorney.
You got the tie.
I thought about you when I put this on. All right. We had a very successful open house yesterday for people to come in during an hour and a half block to tell us what their flooding issues were. We had about 15 to 20 people come in. Even better, we had 50 people fill out a survey to tell us where they have the problems. And the engineers use that to begin to figure out where the issues are. Nobody knows flooding better than the people that have to live with it. I was surprised, a lot of us were surprised with some of the issues that brought in. Probably the worst case we saw were photos from a residence on across from the elementary school on East Street. During the last heavy rain early this summer, it was knee deep in her backyard. I had no idea. And as close as I live, drive down that street all the time, I had no idea that had that big an issue. So there were some good discoveries. The culvert on 132 is done. The road's opened up. Now we're going to shut it down again. Frederick's is going to go back and do a second culvert that we found down the road that was in dire need of repairs. So 132 will be shut down again. When he starts, he will notify Mark Farr, and he said he'll notify dispatch himself, and then Mark will also call me. So we'll wait till we know that he's actually going to do it. Okay, it's within probably a week or so.
Ahead of time. That would say,
Once he does, when he's going to shut it down, he'll let us know, and then let Mark know. And Mark, we've already talked to Mark, so he knows it's coming. Some of you got calls on silt discharge into Fall Creek. Boy, talking about being detectives, Jim Cookie did a good job of trying to figure it out. What it turns out is that from the rain on the big pond that they're working on at Carrick Land, they had to pump that out. The water being discharged off of there was fairly clean. But by the time it made it to the creek, it silted up again. And we had some other suspects that turned out not to be the problem. But in the end, Jim discovered that the water, as it goes underneath 132, just as you get by the church there, just before you do the 90-degree turn to the right, that's where Smith's Farm is. Everybody know where I'm at? You come, turn left off of Main, Jim Smith. And a nice white house around the corner, Thompson's on it. So as it comes down that hill, the water was clean. It would go underneath 132, make a hard left 90-degree turn, and then another right 90-degree turn and start going through the edge of this cornfield along that tree line. And all of a sudden it's dirty. So what we figured out is the velocity of the water coming off of there was picking up silt and off the cornfield carrying in. So I'm trying to make a long story short, but the reason everybody noticed it and it looks so traumatic is because right now Fall Creek's running clear because there's not been a lot of rain, and here comes a little bit of silt, and it just looked like it was an awful situation. It is. It shouldn't be like that. We met with the developer. They agreed to put riprap from right before the entrance, before it goes underneath 132, and then all the way along that, goes right alongside 132, and then about 50 feet after it turns right, it starts headed towards Fall Creek. And what we hope that'll do is the channel looks like this with a V at the deep end. The riprap will fill up that V, and then it'll widen out the channel and slow down the flow of the water, and then hopefully correct that. If that doesn't correct it, that should be step one. If it continues to be a problem, then we're just going to have to probably put the riprap all the way to hopefully not to the creek, but psychologically. Locked up. Oh, there it goes. The other thing we're gonna start to talk to you a lot about is improving the pedestrian crossing and walkability, if I could use that term, there at the high school. As you know, NDOT's are gonna come through and they're gonna reconstruct 67, add some travel lanes, turn lanes, that sort of thing. So they came to Rachel and said, hey, we got a deal for you. We'll do an 80-20 split. Pendleton, you put in 20%. This will be for design and construction. You can add to our project and improve the pedestrian walkways from, would be on State Street from the CSX overpass to the high school, all the way down, and then as you're on 67, we call it 67, they'll call it State Road 36 in the project, and we'll call it 67. From 36 all the way down to 300. And then at the roundabout, from CSX to the roundabout, it goes past the high school. Does that make sense? So the two limits will be Madison Avenue to 36, 167, State Street from the overpass, the roundabout, past the high school at 300 West. Okay?
Just for clarification, you correct me if I'm wrong, but what Scott said there about the state's coming in, gonna do that construction, that's a year and a half away.
2023 is when that will happen. So right now, they're just going through and doing a mill and repave of areas.
Right, everybody needs to know that, it's not something that's
Separate
gonna happen.
projects. This
Right.
one was a preventative. If they didn't do the mill and pave right now, they'd have to go do more construction later. It was to kind of save the base. So it seems a little counterintuitive, but once you learn why they were doing it, it makes more sense. So
So that work that was done that snarled up traffic last week, we were sort of surprised by it too. When we called them and said, hey, can you tell us when you're going to be doing the actual paving? And they gave us a window. Remember off the top of your head what the window was?
we posted it on Facebook today. They should be done by November 1st, although it's NDOT, so I'm not sure if, depending on weather and, all that stuff, it might be different. So I'd say November 1st is kind of the projected date it should be finished up.
We'll put that on Facebook.
It's already on Facebook. Yeah.
Okay.
One of the problems is that if you do have an exact date, you can never rely on it. And I'm sorry that it's a problem for the businesses. I know there was just awful there between State Street and 36 and on 67. Couple small victories. Electrical department, they started any work they've done now since you passed the ordinance. They're going to be billing at the higher rate. Craig did an analysis. This last bill he turned in, he had to turn in under the old rate. If one of the developers had to use the new rate, it would have been an extra $15,000. Street department, Cookie and Ricky did a really good job. They kept nudging me to bring in this $500 million machine that jets out sanitary and storm sewer lines. And they went down the line that's given us all that trouble on Elm Street between Main and Pelham Avenue down to Madison. They were able to clear out 700 feet of that. So, again, they save a lot of money as a town. And they defer reconstructing that for quite a while. Another little thing the water department did, we found out just by turning off the air conditioner and going with $300 dehumidifier, two $150 dehumidifiers, that saved $1,000 in electricity alone at the old treatment plant for 1 month. And then plus it saved us about a $5,000 to $10,000 bill to repair the air conditioner. It was about ready to go out on us. And then Rachel, I want to let her announce this. She's got some really good news for you.
We went and applied for the $250,000 of food and beverage funds, and we found out yesterday that we were awarded that money to do a facade grant program for downtown Pendleton. The funds should be available in March of 2021. So what the program is 50/50. So, you know, we'll have the 250 in food and beverage. We'll ask any of our building owners downtown to match it with 50. So there'll be approximately $500,000 worth of investment in the downtown in the next 3 years. We'll have the funds as long as we have them. If people want to apply, we'll start developing an application process for it, and then hopefully have that ready around the first of the year, and then advertise it so building owners can apply and hopefully get started next spring on a project. So
Is that for facade only or?
we can write it how you would like to write it. It was written for the food and beverage for facade. However, locally, we can be a little flexible on how we use it. We're gonna have the Historic Preservation Commission be the ones that set the guidelines for each of the parameters for the program. Of course, with some staff guidance, but I guess it will be determined fully.
What would you like to say? Something different?
No, I was just asking.
Okay. Well, Jan, so
So that's the planning department for the year at $1.4 million that we brought in grants. And so
So that's the beauty of having a strong planning department is they more than pay for themselves. How much is that an hour divided by?
we're pulling in $700 an hour per year.
Did you guys hear that?
that's one attaboy.
What happened? So she's making $700 an hour.
Good job.
Hey, and our match on all of the grants this year has only been $150,000. So
Oh, you didn't discount that.
I didn't discount the
Okay,
150.
all right.
I'll have to come back to
So
you
she's
on
not
that.
quite making $700 an hour.
Hey, Scott,
Yes, sir.
before we move on the, over on 132. Do you have any information or get you on the culvert there by the conservation building there, the park? Or memory certainly right, it's not in the best of shape. I think we were talking about replacing that at some point. I don't know what kind of shape that's in and what the status is.
Okay, that's good. Can you come in and we'll map this and get that to the engineers? Is it run between Water and Huntsville Road? Or is it run
Goes to Huntsville Road.
directly to the creek?
Let's go through the park. There's kind of one of the railings is broken off.
Okay.
On the south side of it.
Oh,
Right there,
yeah.
conservation building,
Yeah.
for the wide look at that.
All right.
I think it's not in good shape, but I don't
Yeah.
know what all that.
Yes, why don't you come in and let's talk about what that is, and I want to forward that information to the engineers. I'm also asking, while they do this study in preparation for stormwater fee, is to look at what it would take to maintain the county legal drains that are within the town limits. And I think that probably is a legal drain.
It's got that, he did something last year with that stormwater, the county drains. And the money that they had in the account and the amount it was gonna take us to do it, it was,
Yeah.
it's not cost effective for the town at all.
Yeah. So, the problem is the county is not collecting enough money for us to maintain it. And those legal drains, we're gonna take our stormwater and put it into a legal drain. We're not gonna spend any money other than some maintenance until that legal drain is in good enough shape to take our water. Because if we spend money and dump it into something that's not draining well, then we just wasted money.
We looked at that, because we looked at taking over all the county drains
Yeah.
that were coming into the town.
Right, I found the notes on that.
Did you?
One of-
Okay.
Yeah, one of the problems was that the county wanted us to take over the whole drain, even outside of the town
Boundaries of the
limits.
town limit, yeah.
And our good attorney here said that we can't spend money on anything outside of the town limits, correct? If we have the stormwater fee. Correct. So we plan to sit down with the county commissioners at some point and start to talk about how can we mutually benefit each other. Because we're dependent on them and they would don't have enough money, so they would be dependent on us to also help maintain those drains. So somehow we'll figure out a win-win. Go from there. But I know that, yeah, I know what you're talking about. and
Yeah, we do. When you saw the numbers, I was like, whoa.
Yeah, it's a good point.
Rachel, I got one little question for you. This food and beverage fund money, when we got it before, did they pay it monthly?
We're gonna be paying it as one movement.
Right. Do you remember how they did that first time?
No, I can get more information if needed.
The way that, the COVID thing has affected everybody, that may be slow coming in, so.
That's what I said when I got the phone call yesterday. So
Right.
they're trying to do the more emergency type projects first, within the county. And so ours isn't necessarily an emergency type
Right.
project. So they asked if it was okay if we waited until March to potentially get our money at staff. I mean, he said, obviously it's contingent on how much money is actually coming in with food and beverage, but we've been approved by the county council to get that money if it's available.
Well, maybe by the time you get some businesses lined up to do it, we'll have some of the money. Good. Good.
Agreed.
Okay, that's all the department head reports. Can I have a motion to approve?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
A motion and a second to approve all 5 of the department reports. Roll call vote, please.
Jane Davis,
Aye.
Robert Jones, Jessica Smith,
Aye.
Steve Denny.
Aye.
Jeff Babb.
Aye. Thank you. Okay, old business is ordinance 20-14. This is an ordinance second reading, amending the traffic schedule, which is where we're going to change to stop signs at Indiana Avenue and Broadway. Any questions? Has not been changed since last month.
Do we have any comments from the public?
I have
Calls, emails,
If any of you folks have or not.
We did post the speed study that I sent out to you guys on Facebook. I had a couple comments of other residents wanting a speed study down on their street too. But on Broadway in particular, there's, we have that data at least to show that 0.17 drivers are speeding on Broadway, so. And then down by Scott's area, it's a little bit higher, it's 3.15, I believe, our speeders, so.
Any other questions or comments about this ordinance 20-14?
I'll make a motion, we adopt ordinance 20-14.
I have a motion and a second for ordinance 20-14. Roll call vote, please.
Steve Denny,
Yes.
Jessica Smith,
Yes.
Robert Jones,
Aye.
Jane Davis,
Aye.
Jeff Babb.
Aye.
Babb.
Motion's carried. Okay. Public hearing, right?
Yes, we have 2 tonight, and one on the first one is concerning resolution R 20-06.
President, did you want me to make any comments on that?
Please,
Okay,
sure.
so it'll be short. So the last time we updated this for water was in 2002, for electrical was 2015, and we added the 3% per year, and that's the dollar amounts that you see are based on that. So it's pretty straightforward. And I hope that was short enough.
I need to,
Need to invite public comment. I know we don't have, well, yeah, we do have a non-town member here today that may have any comment on that. And then we have online as well. So we do need it for the record, invite public comment on resolution R 20-06.
public comments on resolution R 20-06 for the in lieu of taxes for electric and water.
It's just for the public, it's just a transfer, internal transfer of money. It does not reflect any increase in any rates for the public.
I think the best way to explain this, that Jeff helped me, is if a private company owned the electric company and the water company, this is what they would be paying in taxes as a private entity, not a municipality. So as Scott says, we're just internally paying ourselves into the general fund.
Talking property taxes, right?
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
So prior to 20-06, it was 12,500 a month. Is that correct?
For
Electric.
For the electric?
the electric, and then the water was a lot lower than that. I can't remember off the top of my head.
So the 9,600 is just being added on to the 12,500. Is that correct?
Yes.
I think that's right, yes.
And doing this will keep both utilities financially.
Yes, they're fine. They've got plenty of, they're accumulating money every month. Even as we take and put money off for vehicle depreciation, and as we put money in for capital improvements to the system, they're doing fine.
All these numbers that he's talking about is ran through clerk's office. Linda says, okay, I'm okay with it. Any other questions? Anything online yet, Rachel? Okay.
Make a motion to approve resolution R 20-06.
I'll second that.
I have a motion and a second for resolution R 20-06. Roll call vote.
Gene Davis,
Aye.
Robert Jones,
Aye.
Jessica Smith, Steve Denny.
Aye.
Jeff Babb.
Aye.
5 votes.
Motion carried, 5-0.
I'd like to thank the town manager for going back and looking at that. I think that's very important, free up some money. So thank you for doing that.
Next one is another public hearing, possible lease of a parking lot. Jeff, I'm going to go ahead and let you talk. Might interrupt you, but I'll let you talk. Okay.
This has been a process that is, since I've been the attorney, that Mr. Babb has been very interested in pursuing with Martin Insurance across the street for the town to lease part of that parking lot. And you can see that it's most of the spots in that lot. I will tell you that the latest and greatest that you received at about noon today has already changed a little bit. Tyler Martin has informed me that he has formed a company called Gray, Grae Properties LLC, in which the parking lot will be transferred into. That's not a substantive change. But there was significant negotiation between Chet and Tyler about the terms, whether the town would be interested in purchasing the property, if it's going to lease it, if so, for how long, of what price. Chet made sure that there was an appraisal done on the, or not an appraisal, but a analysis of the value of the lease agreement. Because you are, as you know, when it comes to purchasing things, you're limited to the average of 2 appraisals. That's the top price you can go to. With leases, it's a little different, but you do have to have, you can't just pull it out of thin air. There must be some rational hook to hang it on. And so Chet ordered, and Willie ordered the analysis, and it came back at under what is listed there in Article 2 of rent. It came back at approximately a little over $1,000 a month. Now, that was not comparing it to, it wasn't a full-blown appraisal. Is it something we can reference? Absolutely. With the negotiation and the terms and things like that, this is the amount that Chet and Tyler came to, but ultimately this requires the council approval. And Chet was aware of that during the whole thing, but this has been going on a while. It would provide most of the parking spots for up to 15 years for the town. It is a 10-year lease with a 5-year term as a right for the town. You have an extra up to 15 years. You have a right to go 5 more if the town wants. Right, so up to 2035. The owner does retain a few of the spots to park in overnight if he so desires, or whatever that would be. You would be asked to pass an ordinance preventing overnight parking in that lot. But the rest of this is the result of the negotiation between Chet and myself and Mr. Martin. And we've got to this point today, and it's we must invite public comment and then certainly discuss amongst yourselves any of the terms or anything that's contained in there. I will try my best to answer, and Chet was very personally involved in this as well.
Questions or comments? Council?
I've got a few questions about it. Kind of talked, what I'm hung up on is, one, if we're paying this amount of rent, why are we going to be held responsible for maintaining the property, all the snow removal, salt, and taking out 6 of the concrete pillars over there? If this is a long-term plan where he's going to eventually take out the old drive-through, why are we going to start paying to take some of it down? If I'm that property owner, I'm going to keep it up in case somebody hits it, and then, you know, knocks that brick out. Now we got to take it down. Well, now the town's going to be liable for that maintenance on that brick. I mean, I don't see. I think the parking lot's a great idea. Don't get me wrong, I think it's great. We need it for the town. I mean, we're paying here that's $1,500 a month, and we're doing everything for it. I mean, if I was the owner, I'd love to rent to the town. I mean, you're giving me everything I want. But how are we gonna? I mean, we're not really gonna recoup anything for $1,500 a month. I mean, yeah, parking is key for this town, but the maintenance, the wear and tear on the vehicles to do it, I think, you know, in the long run, it's going to be a lot more than just a $1,500 a month we're going to be paying.
I think on the maintenance, I don't think it'll be that heavy a lift at all. Our guys are so good at plowing, I think they'll have that thing cleared in no time. They gotta go down that alley anyway. So,
And I'm going to add to this, he can't take that out for a certain amount of time because he has a contract with BMO for that to be there. If I'm talking off the top of my head here, but for 3 years before, but he can move it, okay? And he's not wanting to do that. What he's looking at is removing the canopy awning, where you want to call it, above it eventually. So we're talking on down the road, and Scott and I talked about this, and Willie, we went over and looked at it, and I'm okay with it, with pulling the pillars up.
Shane, this is not ideal, okay?
I
You know,
understand.
our intention was to buy it, and we would have liked to have bought it and been done with it. But I think, you know, based on my business experience, this is probably the best deal we could get right here. For the people like the merchants here, this is, I mean, it's right in our own front yard. We gotta have it.
Oh, I'm not disagreeing with the parking spaces. I'm not at all. I'm just looking at it as the potential what we're gonna end up having if we just, you know, the maintenance and all this stuff, man hours we're gonna have, you know, doing all this other work. I mean, calculating that into the $1,500 on top of it is what I'm looking at. That's the only thing I'm looking at.
That's fine.
Was there negotiations to try to buy it, or was that?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, figured that.
I thought we had it bought.
With check in pocket.
And we, in this lease, that's one thing that Tyler and I and Jeff talked about a lot, is we have the right, use the right term, first rights.
You have a right of first refusal if he sells the link, the parking lot at any time during these, the term. So next 10 or 15 years, whatever the town opts in 2030, what it decides to do.
If he, correct me on this, Jeff, if he decides, him and his wife decide to sell that property, whoever they sell it to, we still have the lease.
Correct. This
For
lease,
the term.
this lease will be recorded, and any buyer of that property will be put on notice that you buy it subject to this. And there's language in there that says that as well.
I worried about that when we were talking.
Oh, yeah.
Now, if he,
Jeff took care of it.
now, if he gets to sell that, is there something, I didn't see it in here, is there something that we have the right to purchase that?
We have 45 days to match the offer.
Okay, the whole property, the building and the parking lot, not just the
I think it's just the
parking
lot.
lot.
It's just the lot.
I think it's just a parking lot.
Yeah.
We started out, when I say we, Willie and I started out, I'll just be very upfront. When I got word that BMO was shutting down, that's when I started, when are you leaving? And what do you want for this place? Because I didn't want the building, but I figured we could, if I could pull the deal off, we could get 38 parking places. We ended up with 30, which is a good deal.
I think a lot of people think that's public parking. Mr. Davis, I'll watch that, the maintenance on that. And I'll ask Ricky to make sure if there's starting to be a problem with it, just let me know, and then we'll dive into it.
I mean, that's the only thing I'm looking at is, you know, we're got a lot of things going on and money coming out and, you know.
What kind of, I haven't been over there in a while, what kind of condition is it in as far as needing to pay in the near future? Is that, or is that language in the-
I think we're good for a while.
Yeah, it's
You're okay.
it's in very good shape. Even the,
I kind of
Parking
remember they just made
spaces.
it not that long ago. but-
Maybe, we might want to do something like seal it and restripe it, just so that people get the message that this is a new thing. Well, it's a old thing revised, because it's been public parking off and on through the decades.
I'm sorry, Jeff. Regarding signage, the spaces that Martin wants, is it going to read that it can be public parking certain hours of the day or on weekends?
You'll have to help
Or is
me with
that
that,
totally
'cause I don't know
handled?
if
Is
I
that
got
off
that.
limits?
He wanted to have access to the term he negotiated in was for, he would always have access to those. This would not be public parking.
And what about signage just to let people know that, hey, you can park here? Are we going to have something placed off State Street or off the alley or?
Initially, the thoughts are like the parking signs that we have
Yeah.
now. And I think by sealing it and repainting it, putting up some other signs that sort of like, no, this is public parking, just your standard information signs that are rectangle, not yay big. I think we're gonna, word of mouth will probably be more powerful than any signs we put up.
Okay. I think.
Because I think that the demand is there.
It's right downtown. I know Gary, Friday nights, many Friday nights, I already tried to park on State Street. I went around and I
Yeah.
parked
Yeah.
in that parking lot. Tyler Martin and his wife will put their own signage up. He got with Jeff, I think yesterday or even today, about the wording on ordinance, because Jeff's working on an ordinance about, I think in here, doesn't it say,
Yeah, I wanted to make sure this passed first before we put that in front of you, but we would be obligated to do that if we adopt this lease.
we'll put signage up, and then he'll put his signage up. But Tyler and his wife want to make sure the signage met the standard for the town also. So we got with Jeff yesterday. Any other questions or comments?
Portville has a lot very similar to what we're talking about here along the railroad track for the downtown businesses, and they have signage, and it's worked out really good.
Jessica brought up a good point to me today. Noblesville has, like every other town, trouble issues with parking, or no parking, or parking too long and so forth. Jeff and I talked a lot about this on that lot and what we need to do or should do. And we're still in the zone of changing. Jessica brought up to me about Noblesville, how they do overnight parking. We have business people downtown here that own apartments. People park on the street 24/7. Have every right to. And if we put a sign over there that says no overnight parking, we're forcing them to park on. So that's something we're looking at. How do we want to handle this? I'll just get input from all of us and the attorney, and we'll come up with the right way. And then if we have to tweak it, we'll tweak it. But I think it's important that we get the process going so that once it's our parking lot to use, we got the rules in place. That's what I'm trying to say. Any other comments? Public input at all? Gary? I'm sorry. You won't put in $10,000 a month on it for my business?
Well, I wanted it also. You know, a lot of people wanted that property, and I couldn't be happier where it fell, who bought it, and that you guys are working together. And the fact that you're paying $1,500 a month for 30 parking spots in Plessis, that's a lot of money per spot, but that's big to me. So I appreciate the fact that the council and the planning, whoever's involved in this, I appreciate that you're putting that much into us. That's big, because had that thing gone to other hands, man, we're done. The fact that you're talking about the 24-hour, the overnight parking shows me that you're thinking about everything. And I couldn't be happier that Mark got it, and then you've worked with Mark to help us out. That's big. It doesn't sound like much, but 30 spots is big in this town. So thank you very much for that.
Thank you. Any other comments, Rachel? No. Any other comments or discussion from the council? Lawyer?
We need parking. Traffic issue we haven't had. Police park, free parking. That's a good. Carry your comment, you will take it.
I would like to thank Chet for taking the leap on this when all that first became available. And it's a mindset the council needs to remember, that when property does become available, the town, we need to think about being involved in purchasing things if it's possible.
So to your point, if anybody wants to buy a restaurant, let me know.
What do, I guess I gotta ask, what do I need to do on this? That's for a vote?
Yeah, it would be a motion to enter into this lease agreement as presented or amended, or however the council would like to go, requires a majority.
I have a motion to enter this lease agreement as presented.
And that with the amendments that I just mentioned, where we have a new seller with Gray Properties. It's Tyler's group, but when you had his wife's and his name on it as owners, and they have or are in the process of transferring that into an LLC, which makes perfect sense. Yeah, no substantive changes.
Roll call vote, please.
Steve Denny,
Aye.
Jessica Smith, Robert Jones, Shane Davis, Chet Bab.
Aye. Next thing on the agenda is ordinance 20-17 and ordinance amending the 2020 salary ordinance. Jeff, would you just go into short detail on it, I guess?
Sure. This is the building inspector salary that, well, no, it's a wage based on a salary that my understanding is this person has already been put into place. And that this would memorialize his pay that he had agreed to with the town on a handshake agreement. And this would just add him to the salary ordinance for 2020. At that rate that you see there in front of you, $23.08 per hour.
If I may, Mr. President. So just so the council members know, this is not, his salary is paid for predominantly out of utilities. So we put some other things into place. We'll start to charge that more for permits and inspections and that sort of thing. So this is not affecting the general fund.
I'll make a motion to approve ordinance 20-17.
I'll second that. Have a motion and a second to ordinance 20-17 amend the 2020 salary ordinance. Roll call vote, please.
Jessica Smith.
Aye.
Steve Denny.
Aye.
Robert Jones. Shane Davis.
Aye.
Chet Bab.
Aye. Okay, with this being an ordinance, we really need to, if I can ask, suspend the rules and I can have a motion on that, or we can vote on this for the second reading.
I second that motion.
Yeah, good timing here.
Perfect time.
All right, should we have a roll call vote again?
Please.
Shane Davis,
Aye.
Robert Jones, Jessica Smith, Steve Denny,
Aye.
Chet Bab.
Aye. Let me make sure we've done this right. I need to vote on suspend the rules.
I think you just did. I think the motion was to suspend. Now you vote on second reading.
Okay.
Now we're
Roll
going
call
to-
vote.
Okay, Shane Davis,
Aye.
Robert Jones, Jessica Smith, Steve Denny,
Aye.
Chet Bab.
Aye. Motion's carried. Ordinance is passed. Public comments. Oh, I'm sorry. GRW engineering contract, Scott?
So what this is, it's a $10,000 contract to do our street standards. The reason it's GRW is because they're affiliated with the people who are doing the UDO, and the UDO, Unified Development Ordinance, and the street standards are interdependent on each other. They refer back to each other. So for continuity reasons, we are going with GRW. The 10,000 is pretty standard price. In fact, it's probably a little bit below the standard price to develop street standards. We will try to the extent possible, see that the street standards are close to the county street standards and Anderson street standards. So for continuity reasons, it's obvious. It makes it easier for contractors to, they get the habit of doing, let's say, pouring sidewalks like they do in Anderson is the way we would do it here in Pendleton, and then they don't mess up. Use the Anderson standards for Pendleton, and blah, 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 blah. So to the extent possible that it goes in conjunction with our UDO, we'll also try and match county standards in Anderson.
current standards haven't been updated, I don't believe, since the late nineties or early 2000s, along with a lot of the other documents that we had done. So this will just be another piece that we've been trying to work on getting updated since it's kind of, you know, moving planning department forward
And some grants from NDOT and such will require that you have street standards. So it's a hoop you have to really jump through for more reasons. than
So need to vote on this also.
Yeah, motion to approve would be
Can I have
approved.
a motion to approve GRW engineering contract as received by us tonight? Got a motion and a second. Thanks, Shane and Bob. Roll call vote.
Before we do that, is this 10,000 the very limit? That's the last? Okay, and what kind of time span are we looking here for this?
100, they have 180 days to do it, but they'll do it in conjunction with the UDO. What's the time frame left on the UDO?
UDO. We want to get from you guys by the end of the year. So in December, we'll start the adoption process.
All right, roll call. Steve Denny.
Aye.
Jessica Smith. Robert Jones. Shane Davis.
All right.
Jeff Babb.
Aye. To approve this contract 5-0. Any public comments? They're not public no more, Brett, sorry. Nothing on there, Rachel? It's good. Any comments or questions? Okay, for our treasurer?
I have a question for our Florida attorney here. Yeah, please.
Sorry. Oh, I'm sorry, sir.
We're at a sidebar.
Okay. This agreement with the engineering firm, Chet to sign that, Scott to sign it.
You've authorized the town manager to sign it. He has statutory authority for contracts. It's always my preference to have you to approve, to give him the authority from the council itself. So
Okay. And
Scott,
the same thing with the lease with Martin's.
I think Chet should sign that one, the town
Okay.
council president. And I've got a copy here with the correct parties. I'll have him sign and get to you.
Very good. Thank you. That's all I have.
Sure.
Second.
Third.
Roll call, yes.
Really?
Meeting's adjourned. Thank you.
Come on, now, start at the date you got names.